the first 3 columns of a thought record and brought them to her 3rd therapy session. It's good to see you again. How are you feeling this week?
I don't know. I mean, I wish I could say wonderful. I guess it's been kind of up and down.
Kind of up and down throughout the week. When we met last time, I began to show you that thought record, and I asked you to see if this week you could capture one of those situations where you were feeling more down, more depressed, and try to notice what you were feeling and what thoughts were going through your mind. Were you able to do that this week or not?
I did do it. I brought it with me.
Okay.
I don't know if I filled this out right, though.
Well, let's look at it. Let's see how you did.
Because I know there's like a lot of space there, and I didn't know whether I was supposed to keep going or not.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up. I could have made that clearer last time. You don't have to fill in all the space. There's just space there. In some of these columns, we probably will fill in all the space sometimes, but in the situation, there's usually not that much to fill in. Now, you have here for your situation that you were looking at the personal ads. When were you doing this?
It was earlier this week, actually more at the beginning of the week.
Do you remember what day that was?
I think it was Monday.
Okay. So it was fairly soon after our last therapy appointment. Okay. So you were looking at the personal ads, and where were you when you were doing this?
I think I was sitting on my living room couch.
Okay. Were you all alone when you were doing it?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were reading the personal ads, and as you were reading them, you put that your mood was you were really down. You were feeling depressed.
Yeah.
And you wrote here about 80, 85.
Yeah.
Now that's really good. You were able to identify what you were feeling and also rate it. Was that hard to do or easy?
Well, the rating part was a little hard. I guess I'm not used to doing that. It wasn't a problem to figure out how I felt because I just felt really bad.
And then the rating was kind of hard. And
yeah, it was kind of hard to decide.
Is that why you put 80 and then 85?
Yeah, I kind of made a mistake there.
When you say that's a mistake, what do you mean it's a mistake?
Well, because I thought it was 80, and then I figured it wasn't really 80. I kind of felt worse.
So as you sat there and reflected and thought on it, you realized you were really feeling a little bit worse. Yeah. You know, sometimes, just for your information, that can happen when you start to focus on what you're feeling, is that you do feel a little bit worse. So it may not be so much that this was a mistake, but it's possible. I don't know. Do you think you were really feeling 85 when you sat down, or do you think maybe you started to feel a little bit worse as you began to fill this out?
I don't think I was feeling that bad when I actually sat down to look at the ads, but I think after that I started to feel worse than that.
After you started looking at while you were still looking at the ads?
Yeah, after I started to read over a couple. It wasn't that bad when I got the paper and I sat down on the sofa. I can do this.
Okay. Well, this is a really good situation that you picked then, Sharon, because the reason is because we really want to understand these events during the week when you start out feeling sort of okay. In fact, you were doing something, it sounds like kind of nice for yourself. You were looking at these personal ads. Maybe you had a plan to meet someone. Or were you thinking of calling someone when you decided to write out the personal ads? Or were you thinking of writing a personal ad for yourself? Or
I don't know if I even got that far at that point. Not on that day. I just I'm tired of being alone. I feel kind of lonely, and I thought, well, I would just try it.
Okay. So this is good. So here you were trying to do something really good for yourself to help your depression, and you sat down to do it. You didn't feel so bad, but then as you got into it, you started feeling really pretty depressed. And so this is a really good situation for us to understand, because when you get really depressed, as we talked about last week, then you don't feel like doing anything, and that kind of stops you from doing things to help your depression.
I don't think I did anything else the rest of the evening.
The rest of the evening you didn't do anything else. Well, let's see what we can understand. Now, I noticed you did write some things down in this automatic thoughts column. And do you think these are some of the things that were going through your mind that helped you feel more depressed?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look here what you wrote. You wrote, this isn't going to work?
Yeah.
Meaning personal ads or?
Well, not just personal ads. I mean, finding a relationship at all. I just started feeling overwhelmed, and it's just not going to work out.
So you began to think that you wouldn't be able to find a relationship?
Right.
Okay. We're going to take this pen here, and why don't you add that to that column, because that's another thought that you had, how would you put that in your own words?
Oh, that's different from this part. I don't know, that I'm just not going to ever end up in a relationship.
Okay.
I guess.
Okay. So why don't you write that down as one more thought?
Okay.
Catching even more than right now. Okay, so what did you write down? Let's see.
That I'm never going to end up in a relationship.
I'm never going to end up in a relationship. Okay. So that's even more information about what you meant by this isn't going to work. I'm never going to end up in a relationship.
Yeah.
And then you found another automatic thought here, no decent guy would ever want me.
Yeah.
And that was making you feel depressed too.
Definitely.
Uh-huh. Okay. Was there anything else about that we should pay attention to, or was that the main idea there?
Gosh. I think that's the main thing. I mean, I think I started to think that when I was looking at the way that guys were describing themselves, and the kinds of things that I would find really interesting in somebody. I thought, why would somebody like that? Somebody who's like a nice guy, who's mature, and I don't know, fun-loving. I mean, why would somebody like that ever want me? So, I guess that's what I think of as a decent guy.
Okay. So a decent guy with all those good qualities, you were thinking, he's not going to want me because what? If they were looking at you, how do you think they would describe you, that decent guy?
Boring.
Too boring. Okay, you put that down. Good. Anything else you thought about yourself that would turn off these decent guys?
I don't do anything interesting. I mean, sit at home and watch TV. I mean, who wants to go out with somebody who does that all the time?
Okay. Do you want to write that down here as another thought? Was that also something else about you that you were thinking about that night in this situation?
That I don't do anything.
You don't do anything interesting?
Yeah. I think I was.
Okay, why don't you write that down too? Now, I'm going to ask you some questions, and one of the questions I want to ask you is if you're boring and you don't do anything interesting, then what does that say about you as a partner? Like a dating partner?
I don't know. What does it say about me? Well, I don't know. I guess I always feel like there's just something wrong with me. I don't know what it is. I don't know why I feel like I'm just boring. I don't know. Do you know what you're asking?
Mm-hmm. So you feel that you're boring and there's something wrong with you? And do you think those things then make you really unattractive, or?
Yeah, who wants to go out with somebody who's boring and doesn't do anything?
Okay. So it seems like you keep coming back to these same kinds of ideas that you're too boring and no one's going to want to go out with you. No decent guy would ever want me. So do you think these ideas then really help explain what your depression was about when you were reading the personal ads?
Yeah, I was thinking all of these things.
Okay. So you've got some things about yourself. I'm too boring. I don't do anything interesting. You've got some things about how you imagine these guys are in the ads, that they wouldn't want me. And then you've got some ideas about your future too, that you think you're not going to end up in a relationship and it's not going to work out. Even making efforts to meet someone isn't going to work out.
Yeah. Does
that kind of sum it up for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And I can can see, can you see how thinking, were these things kind of going around and around in your head that night?
I don't feel very good right now, just thinking
about it. So that these thoughts really load up that depression, don't they? They make you feel more and more depressed. Okay. Now, I told you last time that this first part could make you feel more depressed because it's helping us identify what are the things that are going on that are contributing to your depression, at least in this situation. And that what we would do today is I would show you some things you could do to help yourself possibly feel a little bit better. Is this a pretty critical situation for you? Would you like some help in seeing if I can help you feel a little bit better about this dating situation?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we need to do is we're going to go on and fill out these other columns. But before we do that, we need to figure out which one of these thoughts we want to kind of look at more carefully or investigate together. And I often use the word hot thought. We want to figure out the hot thought's the thought that's really carrying the emotional charge. It's the thought that's most depressing to you. And I'm going to need your help because I don't know, looking at these, which is the hot thought, but I bet we can figure it out together. So let me just ask you, I'm going to ask you for each of these thoughts, if this was the only thought that you had, how depressed you would feel. Kind of pretend the others don't exist. So if the only thing you were thinking is, this isn't going to work out, how depressed would you feel then?
I don't know, it's kind of funny because saying this isn't going to work sort of, I don't know, I guess it let me put the paper aside. Like I didn't want to think about it at all anymore. And I don't know, it's odd, but I think saying I'm too boring just is really painful.
That's the part that really brings up a lot of emotion for you.
And then I think, I think this first.
That would be too boring.
Yeah, and then I think, well, nobody's going to want to go to sleep. It doesn't do anything.
So when you think I'm too boring, how depressed do you feel? If you had to rate that from 0 to 100%, how depressing is that for you?
It sort of feels like a 90.
Like a 90? Okay. Why don't you put a 90 right next to I'm too boring?
Okay.
Okay. So this isn't going to work. It sounds like it's a little cooler thought, even though it's a negative thought. It sounds like it's not quite as emotional for you.
Yeah, it definitely hurts to feel it, but it's almost like I can just push it aside when I think that, but when I just think,
because you could think it's not going to work just because maybe you're living somewhere where there aren't any people to date, and then that wouldn't have anything to do with you. It wouldn't be particularly depressing. So just this idea alone, this isn't going to work, how depressed would that make you feel? Separate from those thoughts about yourself.
I don't know, maybe an 80.
Okay. Why don't you put 80 next to that? Okay. And how about this thought, no decent guy would ever want me? How depressed does that make you feel?
Can I make it pretty close to that one?
Sure, you can make it the same if you want.
I don't know. I think I would put that as a 92.
About a 90, okay. And how about I'm never going to end up in a relationship?
I don't know. This is hard to kind of decide which is worse.
Sometimes people have several that are kind of the same. That's okay. We're just trying to get their relative intensity. There may be several thoughts that are equally hot for you.
It kind of feels like, when I think about it now, it's sort of like I'm so boring that I'm just going to end up alone, So it's almost like these are just connected.
So it sounds a little bit like the I'm too boring is kind of driving the whole system. Is that more so than I don't do anything interesting?
Yeah. This feels like it's really about me. And this one is sort of like, well, I don't do things. I don't do things in my life. I'm too boring. Feels like it's about me.
So it sounds like that's really the hot hottest thought connected to your depression is the I'm too boring.
Yeah.
Okay. How about if you circle that so we remember that that's the really hot thought? And that's the thought that really helps explain what got you so down the other night when you were reading the personal ads. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we're going to do now is when we go through the rest of this thought record, we're going to put these other thoughts aside for a little bit. We're going to really focus on the I'm too boring. We're going to see if we can learn something more about that. Okay? Even though Sharon did a really good job of identifying a situation in which she felt depressed and identifying automatic thoughts connected to her depression, I spent some time in this session helping her look for additional automatic thoughts that she might have missed. This is usually easy to do by asking the client questions about the situation, what they were feeling, and asking them questions about the meaning of automatic thoughts that they've already written on the form. After we got a list of automatic thoughts that seemed fairly complete, I then asked Sharon to work with me collaboratively to try to identify which was the hottest and most central of her thoughts. You could see how she got more engaged in the process as we did this. Once we identified her hottest thought, we will now go on and begin to test it out and evaluate it. It's very important to identify a hot thought before you move on to the last 4 columns of a thought record, because it takes a lot of time and effort to do a thought record, and the quality and benefit of it will vary directly with how hot and central the thought is that's tested.